This thing has a really nice swim to it. Welcome back to the Engineered Angler. We're down at my dock, and today we're going to do a master class, a short one, on tuning your crankbaits. So stick around. Well, my name's Franco. I'm a professional engineer, a lure designer, and a lure maker, and an avid fisherman, and I primarily fish with artificial baits. And whether you make your own lures or you're the more reasonable type and buy your own lures, understanding how to tune your lures and why making adjustments to your tie-on-eye can change the direction of the lure, the action of the lure, and even a little bit the depth the lure will go. So let's get right to it. Let's do the easy stuff first and do correction for direction. So let's go ahead and unbox this Uzuri. It's a 5 1/4 inch crankbait. It's not a very deep diver, it's about 5 feet. Since they're machine made, typically they'll come right out of the box, well tuned. Hard to get out of the box. And usually they'll come with a split ring right on the tie-on-eye. And there's a reason for that, because while these things typically come out of the machine almost perfect, if there's a tiny deviation, it can be corrected for with this little split ring. But you can also do that with a loop knot. All right, let's make sure this thing actually retrieves straight. All right, from the looks of it, it looks like it comes back pretty straight. It might have a slight tendency to the right. Look at that, we might have something to do. Yeah, it does have a little bit of a tendency to the right. Let's fix that. All right, the fix is pretty simple. So what I recommend is if you've got a lure that you just bought and it's got a split ring on it and you need to tune it, go ahead and take the split ring off. Tune it without the split ring. Now, what I like to do is to take a pair of long nose needle nose, and if you grab it by the tie-on-eye and take a look and see if there's a big angle between the center line of the body and that line that is in the jaws. And it looks like there's a little bit of a bend already in it. We're gonna need to put a little more in it. Because this lure is tending in that direction, it's left and our right, I need to bend this in the opposite direction. So let me give you a reason why. If this tie-on-eye had this extreme angle on it that I'm just pretending it has, and you imagine pulling on the line. When you pulled on the line, it would be like a tiller of a boat, and the back would be like a rudder. And if you pull it this way, the rudder goes in that direction, and so does the front of the boat, right? So by removing that, you get less of that tiller action, and that's why this actually works. So it's moving in that direction. We're going to tweak this eye slightly to the left. And it needs to be done with very small adjustments. Don't overdo it. You'll end up making it go to the left. All right, I'm going to tie it on with a cinch knot. And while typically I like to run a lure like this either on a quick clip or on a loop knot, when you're making these adjustments for tuning, it's better to have it cinched on. And this way, you know how close you're getting to the tune. And if you can't get it perfect, then running it with a loop knot or putting a split ring on it will correct that slight problem. All right, so I'm pretty confident this thing is well tuned. Now, typically you don't want to run a crankbait with a cinch knot on it. And when you do yours, make sure that that cinch knot is centered right in the middle of that tie-on-eye. Because if it's well cinched down and has a hold of that tie-on-eye, it will have authority over that tie-on-eye. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and just tweak this thing to the side. You see how it's tweaked over to one side? And since it's tweaked to this side, that means it's going to want to turn in that direction. It might even be enough to make it blow out. Yep, look at that. See it? It's just blowing out to the left side. Almost wanting to barrel roll. No, it is barrel rolling. Look at that. So you can see a lot of these lures are really sensitive. That's why it's a good idea to either run a split ring, a snap hook, or a loop knot. For you guys who are using lures that are deep diving lures and typically have the tie-on-eye in the middle of the bib, typically those are not adjustable, and that's usually why they'll have a split ring in them. Even this little cotton cordell has that kind of tie-on-eye arrangement. And while you might get courageous and try to bend that little eye, you're likely to shatter this little Lexan lip. This kind of arrangement is usually pretty stable and usually doesn't need any adjustment. All right, let's take a look at the action on this lure. Same lure, just want to see if you can see just sort of the amplitude of the wiggle. You'll notice it's got a nice action. It's tight and kind of quick. You see it? You can see how tight that wiggle is, especially for a lure this big. Let me show you how you can adjust that, and we'll try to make this thing have a little bigger action at the tail. And you can do this with just about any crankbait, as long as you've got a tie-on eye that you can bend. So you can see this tie-on eye, and I'm gonna try to tweak it down closer to the bib. But I'm gonna grab it from the top edge and bend it down. And I'm gonna do this sort of as extreme as I can so that the difference is really obvious. So there you go. You can see how much closer to the bib that is. All right, let's put it back on and see what it does. Look at that. Huge action. See how big that action is now? All right, here's one last pro tip that can save you if you've got a lure that's kind of marginal. A lure that you can get it to come back relatively straight, but if you crank it a little too fast, it'll blow out on you, or it's too erratic going back and forth. So this lure tends to want to blow out to one side when I crank it a little too fast, but there's a way to cheat and get this thing to be a little more sedate. But before that, if you've made it this far in the video, you must be getting something out of it. Do me a solid and give me a thumbs up. It really does help the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed and you're into lure fishing, or even wanting to get into lure making and lure design, certainly subscribe. The secret fix is a dress treble hook, and you don't put it on the tail. You replace the belly hook with it. Let's do it. All right, let's see if you can see the way this thing darts back and forth. I'm not sure I'll be able to capture it. If you just watch the V that the line makes in the water, you can see how erratic this lure is. Ooh, way to the left, way to the right. All right, guys. Now you know everything I know, and hopefully that'll help you when you're buying lures, or maybe you decide to make one. I'll see you guys next time when I'm making lures. Check it out, we had an extra viewer out here in the middle of the lake watching us. Okay, don't do this at home, kids. Ah! Oh, come on, man. I think I just lost my lure. Come on, dude.